Hello YouTubers, this is the Noobifier. This is a big one. This week I had a unique opportunity to drive to my hometown of Montreal, loaded with your questions for an interview with Benoit at Turbulent. There was a lot of work behind the scenes by many people to make this happen, and I really enjoyed the behind the scenes tour. I hope all the efforts have paid off, and I hope you enjoy. Hello everyone, this is the Noobifier, and I'm here with Benoit in Montreal. And what we've got for you today is questions from Turbulent that we've asked from Spectrum. These are your questions, very much like how Jared does it, except that we're going to do it. So this should be fun. So Ben, what is the priority of work in regards to Spectrum? So we have the new live version of the forums, and the ship store was just upgraded. Can you tell us what's coming next for us?
Specifically on the Spectrum front, our biggest focus right now is first we're coming back to Spectrum because we spent a lot of time working on the launcher for a major part of last year, which it was a project that really expanded quite a bit. And so now that the launcher is in a stable version, we're really circling back on Spectrum. And so our primary focus is to integrate with the game. And so we're working really hard with the services team to get most of it integrated. And so we're trying to get this connection going. And this opens up all the possibilities of powering in-game chat, powering in-game voice and stuff like that. So that's the primary bulk of the work is right now.
Voice is definitely super important. Mm-hmm. So with voice, are you planning to do multi lobbies as part of the first pass, or is that later on?
No, it's gonna have to be later on. We've actually so many people have been requesting that sort of information, multiple lobby connections so that we can do some kind of coordination plus gameplay plus friends or stuff like that. And so we've been looking at the technical problems that come with that, because the voice does take bandwidth, does take power. So we've been looking at that. So we know that for sure our first iteration will be single connection for sure. But we've designed to be able to add that, as our infrastructure is more in place and everything becomes more stable.
Right. And right now, Discord is only single channel anyway, so we're not really in a situation where there's other things that are really offering that type of service anyways. So you mentioned that you want to do multi-lobby in the future. Can you tell me how you think the command voice system might operate, or is that too soon?
No, I can elaborate a bit. Because I've said that before, but our plan right now is to have a fixed amount of voice, I would say, channel slots that you can connect. And so when let's say you go on Spectrum, you join a voice channel, that's one active comm that has a key binding, and the way we want to do command control is to basically have an A/B system where you can join one and join the other and then bind them to different keys. That's the general gist of how we're approaching it. Now, this introduces a ton of UI problems and UX issues that we need to solve.
Of course, because everyone wants it different.
Yeah, so everybody's got their own thing. Exactly. Now, what we know we're going away from is that our first initial idea with that was to do something a bit like TeamSpeak was doing, which is recursive channels, like channels and channels and channels.
Nested,
and we're not going to do nested channels for sure. That's unscalable.
Because Star Citizen always has to do it bigger. Always has to set the standard, right? Okay, so this is an important one because this is something that we've considered. To make sure that people actually want to use Spectrum, are you going to be keeping espionage, eavesdropping, and hacking out of the gameplay, out of VOIP? Because basically, if I know that I could technically be speaking and someone would hear me, I may choose to go to Discord just to nullify that risk. So do you have some creative way to deal with this, or are you just going to remove it from Spectrum altogether?
Well, in terms of that, we're not on this end of the spectrum. We're not specifically thinking that this kind of gameplay will affect our transmission, because you got to remember that there's two major use cases for VOIP. Mm-hmm. on the concept level. There's in-game voice, right? And there's out-of-game voice, which is a bit what Spectrum can provide as well. And so these two concepts are different, right? Even though they're going to be powered probably with the same technology, right? The same kind of concepts. They are two different use cases. For example, the classical use case of Spectrum voice persisting when your game is not active, that's not something that's important for positional audio. for example, right? When you're meeting someone in a hallway inside the game, and if you can hear a voice a bit like in other games, then if one of your two guys crashes, you don't expect voice to continue. That's a different realm. So there's two realms for VOIP that are important to consider.
So if I can try to flesh this out, basically there's going to be almost like a yell button where you can speak in game, and that's the voice directional proximity. And then there will be something similar to Discord where it's just voice chat.
That's the way we're approaching it on a concept level. Yeah.
Nice. That might actually get rid of that by separating them.
Right.
That'll make people.
Yeah, because obviously, like every time you pull something out of the universe on the technology side, it can be exploited somehow or whatever, and we don't want that to affect the gameplay for sure.
So this one's really good. Some backers have said that the first time experience using Spectrum is very confusing. And are there any plans of hiring, let's say, a tester who has no experience with Star Citizen whatsoever as kind of a quality control? So you go up to them and say, "Can you show me where to buy a ship, or can you show me where to enter your login information?" Is that something that you guys are working?
Yeah, that's something that we're actually doing already.
Okay.
But it's not a very easy task because most backers have a lot of experience with whatever we've been building for the past 5 years, and so every time we change it, some people like the change, other people are used to the old way, and it's difficult to keep everybody up to date. And so sometimes we do sound UX changes that don't have a good reception because people are used to the other way, right? And so, like, it's the same thing where everybody wants all the links on top, right? But if we put all the links on top, then it's too complicated, right? So what we are doing on the Spectrum side of things, though, is we're especially for them moving forward with some of the features we're planning, is we really want to get more feedback on some of our ideas and designs. And so our UX team is actually going to compile some surveys that we're going to be probably distributing in some controlled manner. We don't want to go too wide because so that we get more feedback on like exactly what we need to adjust.
Okay, because I mean, like the whole back end of that question was simple. When I saw the new website, it was initially confusing, but it was comfortable because I knew what all the buttons meant. Right. So I didn't have any difficulty navigating. But when I asked a friend to join, I pretty much had to hold his hand over TeamSpeak and basically get him to go to different places. Yeah. So obviously it's first pass and that
on the site, like our main, especially on the actual website, right? The phase that we've done just now was a big change because we're trying to simplify things, but we need to break them to be able to do that. And so this first pass is we've created a Star Citizen vertical, right? Mm-hmm. Because the game didn't have a home. Like if you want to send somebody what is Star Citizen, there was no simple area to go, right? And now there is an area they can go to get the basic information, right, to get started, and they feel comfortable because it's built just like any other game site. Now, if you transition to the RSI side of things, now that site is still a 4-year-old site that we're evolving, and that's going to be an area we're going to be doing a tremendous amount of work this year. Is on that area.
Nice. So the next question is the ship matrix was updated before 2018. Initially, I loved to see it, and then people started to notice errors with it, which is understandable considering that we have a fluid development and balance is changing. So it appears as though those updates are manually entered. Is it possible to take the current numbers directly from the live game data and just have them display so that as a developer makes a correction to a ship that data is automatically pushed to the website? So
that's interesting because that's a question we got a lot even when we were doing that work, right? And so the pure technical answer is yes, we can do that. We can absolutely read data from DataForge and the bin XML file from the game and update that on our web model for display. The problem that is not a technical one. The problem is more of a pipeline and flow thing. The game, for example, the game files do not have any information about concept ships. But we show information about concept ships. We even have comparators on the web for that. Right. And when ships traverse these changes and these iterations, sometimes the data is not in DataForge or is partially in DataForge or in the game, which is normal because that's what the developers are doing. They're entering this data and they're modeling the ships. And so it's not possible. If we did that, a bunch of ships would disappear. Some ships would no longer be represented correctly, because let's say the example I always give is that there was a period where a long time ago now, it's been fixed since, but where the Cutlass was supposed to come with sucker punch guns, and those guns were broken in game, and so they were removed in game, right? But now you don't want the specs on the website to say there's no there's no gun, or it's another gun, because the reality is that the design intent is to have those guns on, right? And so the data from the ship matrix is still coming from a design database that the game design and ship teams are using for that. And so there is a piece of it that's manual update and verification, but the bulk of the data actually comes from that, automatically from those files. Okay. And so that's the big upgrade we did in 2018, is like that database started to exist on CIG's end, and so we're able to pull data from it. But for sure, we really want to get to the point where when ships become flyable and are in a state where they're completely finished, we from that point on start loading data from the game.
Yeah, that becomes automatic.
Okay, so many original backers. This one's really funny because I asked a question to Concierge, and then by the time I got the answer, not saying that it was long, but by the time I got the answer, you had already gone and announced that the Voyager Direct store was going away, and my question was, can I refund my guns? Right. So it was really cute because the person in Concierge got back to me and said, by your own video, I assume that you understand that the question's been answered, right? Obviously, yes. So many original backers purchased items with real money in Voyager Direct, and you recently said that Voyager Direct is being phased out and a refund might be inbound. So when can a player expect the Voyager Direct store to disappear?
So what we're doing now, hopefully for 3.1, is already in the works, right? Is allowing you guys to meld your Voyager Direct purchases. Now, in one of the past videos I mentioned that what we're doing is a reimbursement, not an actual refund on Voyager Direct purchases. What you're getting back is UEC. Right, and that goes into your UEC ledger and raises your UEC cap, and the idea is that this UEC cap will be used as a UEC in game every patch and reloaded and kept in sync. So that's what we're doing right now. So this phase we're hoping will last until 3.2. Okay. And so at 3.2 is the moment where we expect that we're going to be able to move that functionality will be moved in game, and hopefully it's going to be the case. But we're, the fact that we're allowing you guys to raise your UEC cap gives us also more leeway into scheduling that actual move or deprecation for the Voyager Direct store.
Right. So if I wanted to keep a poster but refund a Flashfire mount, I'll have the option.
Absolutely. Right. You're literally going to be able to go in your hangar and just like you would do for any ships, just take your UEC purchases and click on the meld button, and it's going to give you back UEC. Obviously not USD, but store credit. But yeah.
Nice.
Will the current in-game F12 chat be phased out? And if so, what will replace it? When will it be replaced? Will it be part of the Mobi-Glass, or will it be part of the Voyager?
Right. Well, I can't tell exactly what. This is mostly a game design decision, so I can't answer that directly. What I do know is that we do want to bridge the service, the chat service, so that it's using the Spectrum chat service, and so this will allow this whole ecosystem to communicate. But as far as is it going to replace the F12 bind key? What's the UI going to look like?
It's all
Yeah.
Okay.
So as an org leader, to manage an expanding org, will org members with the correct permission be able to send bulk emails? And what I mean by that is that I don't need to know what the person's email is, but I just click send email, and then they would get a message saying like, Nubifire sent you an email from Robert Space Industries, and then they could reply to it, because this kind of functionality would be very important for planning training nights and that type of thing.
Yeah, in part of a lot of people have been trying to do something equivalent to this by using an overwhelming amount of mentions on Spectrum posts or stuff like that, and we actually found limitations to our mention code in that, and so we know there's a need there. We're not sure yet exactly how we're going to tackle it, because there are issues with this, because people can use this to spam other people and stuff like that. But we do want to find a solution to allow you guys to be able to reach out to your user base directly, like if it's to set events or coordinate actions or whatever in a way that through email would be great. That I really want to get to that point at some point. It's part of our social updates, right? But we really think as part of our focus, we need to help you guys get members into your orgs first, because right now we're sort of in between two things where Spectrum provides communications and the org system provides the communities, and we're trying to basically merge this out so that we can have fast invite links, easy ways to discover orgs from within Spectrum and stuff like that, and then add those social features like being able to reach out.
Nice. So it is coming. So players are interested in an in-org calendar similar to what you might see on Microsoft Office to manage training nights, meeting and events. Are there any sorts of capability planned in Spectrum?
Yeah, we've discussed that. That's still on the design table. We really want to do that, like as part of our team. Like the providing calendar functions and event planning is sort of core to the mission of what Spectrum should be. But that's still on the design table right now because we have some basic functionality we really need to get into the app first. But if it's just a desire question, we totally want to do that. And it's been requested quite a bit, so
I can imagine.
Yeah.
'Cause it came up.
And it feels really natural as well to put it there because that's where the it's an application, a web-based application, so it's really well versed in that kind of work.
Right. And people are familiar with it already.
That's right.
Are there any plans to have basic file sharing within Spectrum, some form of Dropbox or link share?
Yeah, we haven't planned on doing any sort of advanced file sharing like that. There's always going to be some file sharing in a chat program. Like for now, you can't upload images directly because of that.
Right.
But we want to add some sort of storage facility. There are considerations to have technically there because it's always the outliers, people who abuse storage, using gigantic files or going crazy on the storage. And so we need to find ways to limit that. But we haven't thought about specifically doing like a Dropbox type system, because that's a lot of engineering, which is a bit outside of the scope.
There's a lot of legal implications there too.
For sure.
Hosting someone else's data, you really don't have to.
That's right. So we want to be able to support ephemeral uploads, but not storage, basically.
Okay.
Is there an easier way to add org members to a friends list? I mean by that, potentially that if you're part of an org, you can click on a tab, and then as people come and go from the org, they automatically get added to your friends list.
Yeah, we're actually literally as we're talking right now, that was the meeting I was in just before. We're doing some UX reviews on some of the friends system updates that we're going to bring to Spectrum, and so that we're mostly looking at the UI at that front. But the current friend system, needs to be souped up. And part of that is a bit to have the UI to do exactly what you just described, which is, if you're inside an org, you can see your people that are in your org that are online, you can see their state.
Nice.
So, and then this is a follow-on question. In an org like Test Squadron, shout out to Montoya, where there's literally thousands of members, is there a plan to remove the friends list cap? Because I think it's capped at 200 or something right now.
Yeah. There's always going to be a limit for sure, for a single account's friends list, right? Because their storage is planned. That's how we plan scalability. It's like you can multiply, the maximum amount of contacts per the amount of accounts, and then you know how much you need to store. So there's always going to be a limit. 200 is a bit low for now, so we're probably going to raise that at some point, but I can't tell you exactly what we're going to do there.
Okay. And then as far as making friends in the game, is it possible for a friends list to operate more like Steam, where I would send a request and it's answered or ignored by the other player, rather than what we have right now, which is I basically have to phone the guy and say, I'm adding you as a friend and you should do the same thing?
Yeah, that's what Spectrum allows us to do. So part of this is the whole notification system that we have in Spectrum allows us to do this kind of functionality. And so that's what we're circling back on, is to have more types of notifications for the kinds of friend requests or joining an org and org invites. And so that's the kind of thing that we really want to push.
I think that you kind of answered this one a little bit. So is VOIP part of Spectrum, or is it part of the core game? And are they eventually going to become the same thing?
It's hard to really answer that like that, because it's VOIP is part of this whole back end. Obviously, there are big components of VOIP that are part of the game, because facial tracking and capture is done in there. On our end, VOIP is really a big challenge of synchronization and data transmission. And so that's what concerns us really, is like, how do we transmit this data? Who can see it? How can it be seen? And so the game design will dictate more exactly what kind of challenges are there and the UIs in game. But for us, it's really a data transmission issue.
Yeah, I can imagine that all these different components add up and just eat bandwidth, and then you're trying to be economical, and then you have this new beast that comes in that's power hungry. So is the final plan for the launcher to remain open when playing, or will it close to reduce load?
No, the launcher will remain open for sure while playing, because it will also serve as a security sandbox so it needs to be online for sure.
For tracking everything.
Exactly.
Okay.
We're going to switch over to the mobile app, and I know that you've been getting questions like crazy about the mobile app, and I understand you just answered the other week and said that it's not the time right now because we need to work on the game and all the other back-end stuff. But is it your plan to put VOIP as part of the mobile app like it is in Discord?
Yeah, our initial ideas on the mobile app were that we were going to not have voice in it. The decision was purely based on resource assessments. We might revisit that in the future, but for now that idea still stands.
I gotta tell you, I use it a lot, like on Discord, just for nitpicky matters. If some guy's having a difficult time in the org and he wants to talk to me about it, he can reach me, and it's actually really cool. And we've also done it that if I'm not available for a meeting, I can be part of the meeting just on the app. So it's hopefully that's able to make it into it. Will in-game players be able to reach you on a mobile app for simple things like I say, planning a mission, or let's say you're in trouble and you punch out a distress beacon? Do you think that it's possible in the future to have the mobile app inform people outside of the game of something that's happening inside the game?
Yeah, for sure. That's one of the core principles of why even the web-based application or the mobile application, once it's actually packaged, will allow us, is that this, once again, the notification backend there, those notifications can come from in-game now that we're working on this integration. And so for sure that's something that we want, but the crux of the decisions there are really on game design about exactly what kind of notifications you can allow players to take outside of the game, right? Because it's easy to use that information for other things as well. And so we're gonna have to be, like, the game design team needs to be very precise about the kind of notifications you can get. But distress calls and friends calls and stuff like that are definitely something that we can transmit.
Yeah, because I think I know that there's an announced API, but if you, let's say something like within the mobile app, I can sit and plan out my route that I'm going to do, and then that is automatically saved and linked, and then I get into game, and then all the back end is done, and I can just sit down and drink a coffee and play with my friends. That type of thing doesn't sound like it can be exploited, but the community is notorious for finding something like that and using it for an advantage. So I can totally understand that there's a need to balance and almost role play, or almost make it work and then let the community have it and then break it so that you can make it so that it can't be exploited.
Well, and you're right. It's like it's always a double-edged sword with the features that we have in mind. Sometimes some features seem like a great idea, but then when some people start abusing it, then you realize that the use case that you had in mind was basically a Alice in Wonderland scenario. And so we have to be very careful with these things, but at the same time, some of those scenarios are actually very compelling and I think can make this game very different. So that's why I'm pushing for them.
Nice. Are we going to see polls back in Spectrum?
Yeah, it's on our work list for sure, because everybody wants to see them come back, because it's a nice feature component. Now that we're still working on editor changes, which has been the bane of our existence for the last year, but as soon as we can get this written out, we want to try to do a quick iteration, get some polls back in at some point. Obviously, this always comes down in priority compared to any type of game-related features, but we're going to try to get them in for sure.
So I have a question from what the fuckosaurus. He the other day was commenting, like he does. He goes off on a little spiel, and he was concerned that you can only upvote things in Spectrum, and I understand there's a negative component to getting someone the ability to be able to downvote something, like you can mass bot or something like that. But I think the juice is worth the squeeze in this case. And it's not really a question, I guess. Is like, are you guys exploring the fact of having an up and down vote as part of our posts?
Well, to answer the question straight up, we're not considering that. But now that we're talking about it, I'm interested to talk about it. You know, the design decision as to why there's only an upvote is really based on to prevent negative brigading from happening, or, you know, we want our communities to be as positive as possible.
Right.
And so, like, the experience of, you know, writing a comment and then getting downvoted to hell until you can't even see your comment, you know, it happened to me on other websites.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's, you know, it's not something that's really cool. It's frustrating. Yeah. And so we didn't want to alienate people. And so that's why there's only an upvote. But I can understand why downvote could be interesting in the cases of, like, some use cases that we have where, you know, like taking questions, and then if there's no downvote, there's no way to say, hey, this has already been asked, right? It's not necessarily a downvote. It's more like a, you know, it's like
those 10 for the chair questions.
Yeah.
The weekly ones
Yeah.
where the questions get answered. Maybe just in those then, and leave them out of others.
Yeah, maybe we could make it configurable per channel or something like that. But at the same time, I like the fact that we have a single voting model, right? It just makes things very simple.
Right.
But, you know, we're not super enforcing on that. You know, it's going to depend on if the community team feels that they really need it, or that it would be more beneficial, like you said, based on, you know, experience. So we're not close to changing that.
Because that's really the way the world works. You know?
It's up and down.
People don't share your view. They'll let you know.
Right.
So keyboard warriors unite. So can we expect to see an option for recruiters to be notified? Obviously, this is going to be part of Orgs 2.0 whenever that drops. Currently, if someone joins the org, you almost have to go on a fishing trip and check daily to see what you caught.
Yeah.
Right? So is there a possibility of getting that so that when someone does join the org, that the person with the right authority gets a notification?
Right. Well, as part of, you know, just like we talked earlier about, you know, notifying you when there's changes in the org or stuff like that. We really, like, that's a perfect use case for it. Recruitment is a great one. Like, somebody just applied, you want to approve it, you know, deny it, stuff like that. So notifications with action resolutions.
Right.
So this is a bit of the conundrum that we're in, is that we need to bring in more of the org system into Spectrum, basically sort of melt the org system into Spectrum to make all of that better, so that there's no flip-flopping. It's like going on a fishing trip trying to find stuff.
Right.
And I've gotten just used to it, but I think we can do better. Right?
And obviously, when we change it, some people are gonna miss this.
Yeah, you'll never make all-star citizens happy. That is a no-brainer. You don't need a video for that. So in the future, is it possible as part of the store to have a tab where I can see all ships, the available ships that are, like, basically tunnel down, so that if all I want to see is available ships that I can fly now, I can click it, and then it'll kind of reduce the ships to look at.
Sure. So on the storefront, we haven't touched the store in a long time because it's a big system, right? And obviously it's a critical system. It's probably the most critical system that we maintain overall. We, like, as part of some of the website work, we've done some skin jobs on it to just polish it up. But we want to dig into it a bit more, and then probably in the next year, to change some of that stuff, right? Because you're right that it's daunting to browse. There's so many options. There's different ways to buy ships, to find them, whatever. Right. And so we're currently exploring a lot of different options. We're having super big discussions about that, about changing the browsing experience for this, but also providing more tools. We just don't want to do another paint over for this, because we feel like there's a way to add more functionality. So yeah, we're in those discussions right now for sure.
I can't talk about those plans yet.
That's understandable. Yeah, it's good, because it's the same thing. Like, you get your heart set on an Orion as a brand new citizen, it's not available.
Yeah.
It's almost like, shut up and take my money, and you can't.
Yeah.
Right? The guy's ready to buy it, and it's not there. So it might be easier for that just to go smaller. So how will hailing, and I'm talking about ship hailing. So right now, again, I don't even know if this is a turbulent question, but right now we have the landing system, and as we fly near people, I can see the names pop up and out into the same thing. Is that going to be how the hailing system is going to behave in the future?
Yeah, well, I can't speak to how it's going to be done in game specifically, like on the UI, but for sure, whatever technology, like the technology that we're using for voice, is based on real voice systems, and so there is the concept of a call and answer, and so that's what the technology will be using. But as far as how that's represented in game,
just like Star Trek. Yeah. Uhura.
Exactly.
Uhura.
You need a comms officer. So
it's just perfect. Like, it's so good. I'm so excited about that. So I know this one's a Spectrum question. So citizens want to post their creative works to Spectrum. There's a character limit forcing people to either cut the work up into several posts or hot link to a Google document. Would it be possible to relax the long post limit so that short stories and other such creative posts could actually be placed into Spectrum?
Yeah, in fact, we've got an internal request for that because it happened to CIG staff as well. So
okay,
we're gonna exactly. So we're gonna have to do something about that. And the Spectrum format feels much better. I feel like we can have longer posts there. So
right. Yeah. So it was really just a relic from the old forms.
Yeah, it's like keeping the same kind of limits and then bringing it in. But in this case, I think we can grant that a bit more space.
Okay, so on the subject of legacy forms, some citizens have asked about where they are. I know that they're still there because I was able to Google them.
Yeah.
Was it intentionally left out of Spectrum? Is it just that you guys are trying to move on and not worry about the past?
No, I mean there should still be a link to the forum archives from the RSI side of the platform. Okay. But for sure, there's no links for it from Spectrum because we're definitely trying to move on. Like that's older technology that we don't want to have to maintain. But it's important for us to keep it because it's part of the history of the project, and so we want to keep the forum archives there. I don't think we removed the links from the menu, but if it's gone, I'm going to put it back.
So this is a good one. Hopefully you're excited about this idea as I am as well. Is there plans to produce a ship pipeline similar to the new roadmap? So all non-flight ready ships, anything that is either launched in concept or that we've heard of, where it is by its current stage and possibly an estimated time or year of release.
Well, you're asking if there's a plan to do that. No. The roadmap is the roadmap, right? But I don't think it's a bad idea either. I mean, to treat ship epics differently than others, that's an interesting concept. I mean, I'm gonna try to raise it up with the Eric and Dennis that did the nice ATV last week about some of the roadmap work that we've been doing. Right. I mean, I really dig the format of the new roadmap. Personally, I think it really conveys the objectives that we have, and it could be a great way to represent the ships as they go through the different stages of modeling, interior, exterior, assembly, physics, etc.
The reason I think the question came up is the omission of Carrick and Hull C from the roadmap. Right. People are expecting to see it, and just that they're not on the roadmap doesn't mean that they're not being developed.
Exactly.
It just means that there's no firm dates, so they're not there, and that's what the caveat's for.
Yeah.
But not everyone reads the caveat, and potentially having a ship roadmap might just settle people's minds a little bit. So this one here comes down to the need a function that I would like, and it would save people $5. So some other video games like Battlefield have a 4-character org tag plus your game name, and they're separate. Is this something that can be added in Star Citizen?
And specifically for what case?
So for example, I'm a member of Enemy Contact, and our org tag is EC.
Right.
And it would say EC, the Nubifier 1337.
Sure.
So if I kick someone out of the org, they would need to go pay $5 to change their name because that's part of their name.
Right.
So the org leadership would decide what the test, for example, would be the thing. And the way I see it working would be like if you see someone, whenever you normally see their name pops up. And then if you hover over them a little bit longer, their org comes up.
Right.
Maybe. That's just an idea. And again, it's all about team building and that kind of thing.
Right.
So
A bit like a clan prefix or
A clan
something
tag,
like that. Yeah,
exactly.
something like this, but part of the name.
yeah.
Well, we didn't plan on doing any changes to like the account identities, right? We always merge in your primary org we attach it usually to your profile to always display it.
Right.
We haven't thought of like modulating your name or your handle based on that, simply because we're following the specs from the original design doc, specifically on handle and display name. But I mean, that's something that obviously other games can do. It might be a good idea to look at it.
Yeah.
Part of the team. It's gonna be
Yeah.
a good thing. So the next one is we can basically change loadouts in Arena Commander and in the PU just by going up to the ship. Are there ever going to be a way to change your loadout within Spectrum?
I can't really answer that. I mean, as the designer for Spectrum, I would love that, right? I would love you to be able to pop the Spectrum overlay and do modifications. But I don't think that's the direction we're gonna go. But I'd love to see that. But for now, I don't think that's gonna happen. But I mean, in game, definitely, right, for sure.
Okay.
And then this one here is this one I know a lot of people have been looking for. Are there going to be opportunities, like can we expect to be able to perform some tasks outside of the game? Something like doing research, basic exploration within Spectrum, planning your routes for the next mission, exploiting previously hacked data, adjusting your ship cargo, these kinds of things that you may not do, not necessarily away from the computer, but offline.
So I can't confirm any of this, obviously, right? Because this is still on the drawing board for quite a bit, and it's pretty far because the main gameplay needs to be in place first. But this is definitely something that we've talked about in the past about exploring, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's something that this game has a specific hunch for, meaning like you're offline, you need to do something, right? Then why would we prevent you from doing that? Right, or maybe that's just something that makes this game different, is that you can have like an access to your assets from outside. Now those plans are not finalized at all, and they're still up for discussion because the core gameplay elements need to come in, which are a bunch of those are planned for 3.2.3.3.3.4 this year, and so I mean that's a bit why my answer in calling the devs about the mobile app was called out, is because like the reality is like based on those things, it's going to modulate that project quite a bit, and so yeah.
All right, last question, and this is the best question. What are Turbulent's greatest successes with the Star Citizen project to date?
Oh boy.
Like, what are you most proud of? You can choose 2 or 3 if you want.
Okay.
I'm gonna go with 2 because I like to keep it short.
Okay.
Right. For me, the number one, my number one project that we've done is the star map for sure.
Yeah.
Because the star map was a project that was requested by the community. Right. It was voted on. And I remember being in the office when the voting came back, and I was like just terrorized by that, because it was very early in the project. The actual plans for the in-game star map were still up in the air, so we had to figure it out, right?
Yeah.
We had to do a lot of figuring out, like how the UX is going to work, how do you select celestial objects, what do we have to display, like how does this work? And so we worked really hard to do that. And we were doing a very innovative and ambitious project, which was to keep that in the browser, but make it feel like you're in game.
Right.
And so that, for me, that's our number one accomplishment, because I think it was the project. Even today is a great basis for building some of the features we can imagine, like being able to move your ship from outside the game and stuff like that.
Like if no one is aware, or if someone's not aware, that one. Like I forget the specifics, but it was called out.
Yeah, it was the Adobe cutting edge project of the year.
That was a big deal.
Right,
so,
right.
Yeah, definitely congratulations for that.
Yeah, and it was also very rewarding to be able to just flesh out the universe of the game, and working with the lore makers. I'm sure you guys know these guys by now really well. And I mean, working with this great team was so amazing, because we're really embedded. We had our strike team. We're just working on the star map, getting it out of there, and I even exceeded on my own expectations for that. And I would say my second favorite accomplishment is just the platform that we built to support and finance the project, right? Like the fact that we came in really hot, just like everything in Star Citizen comes in really hot. But in a project that was gathering a lot of interest with a super big dream, and we were able to support that dream by building a platform at record pace for record cost, right? And to be able to help finance it, right? And serve the community out of that, right? I'm a big believer that fan service makes a huge difference in how we how we operate on the web and stuff like that. And so I'm really proud of what we've been able to build in the project up to now for that.
Well, thanks very much for the interview. It's been fun. I enjoyed driving through Montreal and linking up with you, and I had a great day.
Cool.
So thanks very much.
No problem. It's my pleasure. See you guys.